All right, welcome to This Explainer. Today we're cutting through all the noise to break down the highly publicized Titan submarine incident. We are going to follow a strict, minute-by-minute timeline based entirely on the facts. We'll track everything from the initial launch to the massive global search, and finally, dig into the engineering decisions behind this highly scrutinized vessel. So let's jump right in.
Right off the bat, the stakes for this mission were absolutely massive. We are talking about a descent 4 kilometers straight down into the pitch-black depths of the ocean floor. It's an environment that is incredibly hostile to human life. Now, the goal was to visit the legendary wreckage of the Titanic, a site that has, completely captivated the world since it was found in 1985. But as we're going to see, venturing into that abyss carries some truly terrifying risks.
So who was actually making this incredible dive? Well, we had 5 individuals on board, all from really varied backgrounds. There was Hamish Harding, the Action Aviation founder. You might remember he actually went to space previously with Jeff Bezos. Then we had Stockton Rush, the CEO of OceanGate, Paul-Henri Nargeolet, who was a 77-year-old renowned Titanic expert, and prominent Pakistani business tycoon Shahzada Dawood, alongside his son, Suleiman. 5 people, all brought together by the shared dream of seeing the world's most famous shipwreck firsthand.
Okay, let's map out exactly how this unfolded. The macro timeline really kicks off on Saturday, June 17, 2023. The team departed from St. John's Port up in Canada, heading about 700 kilometers out into the North Atlantic. But the context right before the dive is absolutely crucial here. Before they even descended, a problem with the Titan was noticed, and Hamish Harding actually posted online about a delay due to harsh, freezing weather. But despite those initial warning signs, the mission pushed forward the second a brief weather window opened up on Sunday morning. Now, a lot of experts will actually tell you that getting to the bottom of the ocean is tougher than going to space. The Titanic is resting 4,000 meters. That's 4 whole kilometers below the surface. To truly wrap your head around that staggering depth, just picture the tallest building in the world, the Burj Khalifa. Got it? Now imagine stacking it on top of itself 5 times, straight down into the freezing, crushing darkness of the ocean. And at that depth, the physical danger is, well, it's almost incomprehensible. The water pressure down at the Titanic is roughly 5,800 psi. To put that into a perspective we can actually understand, imagine the entire weight of a fully grown elephant, but all that weight is pressing down on just a single square inch of the vessel. That is the immense, unimaginable force the submersible was fighting against every single second it was down there.
That brings us to the actual day of the dive, Sunday, June 18th. The original plan called for an 8 a.m. launch, but the descent didn't officially begin until noon. Now, a normal trip down to the wreck takes about 2 hours. But at 1:45 p.m., so exactly 1 hour and 45 minutes into the descent, and literally just 15 minutes shy of reaching the Titanic, the mothership lost all contact with the Titan. The whole trip was supposed to last 7 hours. When 7 p.m. rolled around and they missed their return window, that's when the panic really set in. By 9:40 p.m., the U.S. Coast Guard was officially called in. Now, you might be wondering, why didn't that initial radio silence at 1:45 p.m. trigger an immediate massive panic? Well, when you're down that deep, where sunlight absolutely cannot reach, it's actually super common for wireless signals to just drop out. The crew on the mothership didn't immediately treat the silence as a catastrophic failure because they assumed it was just a standard glitch in a really unforgiving environment. It was only the failure to resurface that evening that signaled something had gone terribly wrong. And once that alarm was raised, a truly terrifying countdown started. The Titan was equipped with a maximum of 96 hours, basically 4 days of life support and oxygen for the 5 people inside. That single shrinking number dictated everything. It created this frantic pace for the operation and kept the entire world completely on edge as the clock just kept ticking down. What followed was a literal race against time on an international scale. By Monday, U.S. and Canadian ships and planes were out there scanning the surface, while underwater sonar started sweeping the depths. Even commercial ships in the area were put on high alert. For 2 agonizing days, they found nothing. But then, a sudden glimmer of hope. On Wednesday morning at 6 a.m., search teams picked up sounds deep underwater using radar. Remotely operated vehicles, ROVs, were immediately rushed toward the noise, though unfortunately they didn't find anything at first. By Thursday, June 22nd, that 96-hour oxygen window had essentially closed. But the joint search from the U.S., Canada, and France kept pushing. At 12 p.m., an ROV finally reached the seafloor right near the Titanic. Just a few hours later, at 3:48 p.m., they made the devastating discovery.
The ROV identified a piece of the Titan's tail resting on the ocean floor, confirming the absolute worst fears of everyone watching.
And here is a truly haunting detail. That debris? It was found merely 1,600 feet away from the bow of the Titanic itself. The very vessel that set out to view the famous wreckage had tragically become a shipwreck of its own, resting just a tiny distance from its destination. This confirmed beyond a doubt that the submarine simply couldn't withstand the water pressure and had suffered a catastrophic implosion.
Naturally, this tragedy instantly sparked massive global scrutiny around the engineering and safety of the Titan. Traditionally, if you're building a deep-sea sub, you rely on incredibly heavy, proven materials, like solid steel, to survive that crushing pressure. But OceanGate took a different route. They chose to innovate by using aviation-grade carbon fiber for the hull. They wanted to push the boundaries of the industry with a lighter material, and well, that decision quickly became the absolute focal point of the entire investigation.
And this engineering philosophy wasn't a secret at all. OceanGate CEO Stockton Rush openly acknowledged it, stating back in 2021, "I have broken some rules to make this," explicitly talking about swapping steel for carbon fiber to drive innovation. Now, it is important to note the Titan actually did pass initial pressure tests, ranging from 5,000 to 10,000 psi. But as experts quickly pointed out, the ocean is full of incredibly unpredictable forces, sudden currents, shifting waves, or even the risk of bumping into heavy rocks in the pitch black.
Looking back, it also emerged that there were definitely some red flags regarding that carbon fiber hull years before the fatal dive. In 2018, an OceanGate executive actually raised serious concerns, warning that a catastrophic failure of the carbon fiber body would literally only give milliseconds of warning. On top of that, during a dive in 2019, businessman Carl Stanley reported hearing cracking sounds coming from the Titan's body as they went down. He later told CNN he firmly believed those sounds were an early warning sign that the hull was struggling under the extreme pressure.
And tragically, that executive's warning from 2018 about a sudden failure was spot on. Experts estimate that when the hull finally did fail under the crushing weight of the ocean, the fatal implosion took roughly 0.3 seconds. Think about that, 0.3 seconds. It was a failure so unimaginably fast that the human brain literally wouldn't have even had the time to process what was happening.
So looking at this entire timeline, from the initial launch to that devastating final discovery, it really forces us to reckon with a difficult reality. The ambition to explore the unknown, to see history with our own eyes, that is a deeply human trait. But as the Titan mission tragically shows us, the deep ocean is a vastly unforgiving environment with physical laws that simply do not negotiate. So we're left asking, does the human drive for extreme tourism and exploration outweigh the terrifying, unpredictable forces of nature? It's a heavy question, and for sure, one the world is going to be debating for a very long time. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer.